Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Our on Zoom where it like tells you the meeting is being recorded, like I guess Zoom updated so it like popped up in a different place. And so it just really threw me off. And it just took me a minute to because I had to like find it to like click OK and then I like froze and I was like, what do I do here? What do I
I mean,
say?
that happened to me too because, like I told you, the record options changed, and I was
Yeah.
like sitting there and I was like, which one's the option again?
It's such a like muscle memory thing that like you don't think about it until like
Hmm.
you go to do it and it's different and then you're like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Which also
Yeah.
reminds me, fun little thing. So I was in a training for work a couple weeks ago and I can't even remember like what the like point of this was. Maybe it'll come back to me as I'm talking. But basically he was like, make sure your phone is like turned face down so you like can't see your phone. He's like, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. He's like, draw your like home screen on your phone. So not like your like lock
Hmm.
screen, but like once you open it, like draw what your home screen looks like. Like how many apps do you have? What apps do you have? Like in what order? Like what does the picture on the app look like? And I'm sitting there, I'm like,
Yeah.
the fuck? I don't know.
I'm gonna have to try to do that. I feel like I could do it.
It was really hard. Like I didn't think it
But
would
I
be so
also
hard.
am really big on like folders and like which ones get
Yeah.
left out and like in what order.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. Like I was, because I was like, literally didn't even get like the main ones, like phone and text right. Like I was like, I don't know. Like it's just like there. Because I think
mine
maybe he was,
is phone, email, Safari, text.
oh, yeah, no, I
I also have like
probably now still couldn't tell you even after
I have
doing
like
that.
the worst memory, but the best memory about things. Like I don't remember like big things happening, but I remember like small minor details
That
that
is
like
very
don't
true.
actually matter. Like
Yeah.
I went on a trip this weekend and I can still remember both door codes. Like no one remembers the door codes and I like memorized both of them and can just remember them. Like I
You
don't
do
know.
remember lots of like detail things that like you're like, oh, you remember that one time like a decade ago? No, I do not
Yeah.
remember that thing
Yeah,
at
but
all,
then it's
Courtney.
like, do you remember that time we went on a trip to blah blah blah? And I'm like, not a single memory from that
Nope.
one.
That person never met them. I don't know.
No.
Yeah, I only got right my photo icon and my Libby icon where I check out my books. I'm like, yeah,
I
that
think that
sounds
tells
about right.
you about what you need to know.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. Anyway, so let us know if you try it. You guys try that out and let me know. But don't look at your phone right now. You got to do it
I
before because
know,
if
but
you
we're in
think
an
about it,
audio medium.
yeah.
But I want to do it right now. But it's an audio medium. Can't.
We'll just pause for 2 minutes
Oh,
for Courtney
no.
to just listen to
No.
silence as
I will
Courtney sketches.
hyperfixate on that and I just can't right now. So we'll have to keep moving on.
Because I feel like it's different too if you like, because you're gonna look at your phone between now and the time you do it, and then you'll like
Yeah,
consciously think about it versus like when you had no idea where that was going, and then you're like, oh, I don't
that's
know.
true. Yeah.
Anyway, I also made a poor decision where Andrew had to go to the store to get his like nicotine things or whatever because
Hmm.
he's running out, so you gotta get those. And he's like, "Oh, do you want anything?" And I was like, "Yeah, give me some Sour Patch Kids." So he got me some Sour Patch Kids, but then I painted my nails right before we started recording.
Oh
So now
no,
I
now
just
you
have
can't eat them.
this bag of Sour Patch Kids right in front of me that I'm staring at, and I have wet nails. But thankfully, I speak first, so by the time Courtney's talking, they should be dry enough for me to eat my Sour Patch
To
Kids while
eat
I'm
some Sour
muted.
Patch Kids.
So, because I'm just like staring at them, and I was like, oh no, this was a bad decision.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any updates this week. I'm trying to
The
think if I've seen.
only update we have is
Just
a bit
kidding,
of a
like
stretch.
always.
No, it's a bit of a stretch, but I
Okay.
believe it's a crime, and that's Harrison Bucker's graduation speech.
A crime for sure. Like,
Yeah, basically, that's all
oh
my
my
TikTok
God.
is right now is
Yeah.
either people like quote tweeting it, talking about it, whatever. And
Have
yeah,
you seen anything on Facebook about it, or are you only seeing it on TikTok?
way more TikTok, a lot on Twitter, mildly on Instagram, and mildly on Facebook. Like maybe
Okay.
like 3 or 4 posts on Facebook about it.
Yeah, because I've seen a few on Facebook, but the Facebook comments and the TikTok comments are very, very different. Like everyone I've seen on
Yeah.
TikTok is like, fuck this man. And like everyone on Facebook
Hmm.
is like, not everyone, but like maybe 70%, like a good majority are like, oh, I'm so proud of him for speaking up for what's right and blah, 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 and speak your truth. And I'm just like, ew, what?
My favorite tweet, I
Ugh.
wonder if I can, I don't know if I can find it. Um, but it was like, thank you for this advice on masculinity to like the only guy on the football field who cannot be touched no matter what. Like something like that, where it was like his position too,
That's
like
great.
it's a penalty if someone touches him, like it's no contact, like whatever. But yeah, TikTok has definitely been like bashing him, and like
Yeah.
Allison Cooch like made a post about it, and like someone actually commented who was like a woman graduate at that college who was like, it
Mm.
was shitty to sit through this because like I
Yeah.
was wondering too because it's like the Catholic university, so it's like
Hmm.
okay, these people may have the same thoughts as you. I also feel like his thoughts were way, way more extreme and strict than the majority of Catholics are now. Like people in the
Yeah.
comments were like, my priest down the street is less strict than this. I was just wondering, like, how did the women sitting there feel? Like,
Yeah,
obviously, I
absolutely.
feel like you would be offended, but like, less offended than the rest of the world,
Hmm.
maybe. But I mean, it's just like, why would you bring that up in a graduate? Why would you be bringing up abortion and COVID and Joe Biden and emasculating men and homemakers, like all these things
Yeah.
in a college graduation?
Just so inappropriate for the setting. Like, what is the point? Yeah, just very
Yeah.
inappropriate.
And I saw another one where he did a speech last year at a different college and he was like, my God, what was it? And he was like, I'll give you like the next best thing that you can do. And that's like get married and start a family or something.
Ew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh.
Which there is nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home wife, a stay-at-home mother,
No,
homemaker.
absolutely
Those
not.
are absolutely valid professions. But when someone spends 4 years and a lot of money working their ass off for their degrees to do something, it's kind of insulting to them. Be like, don't worry about promotions. Just go
Like
stay
you
in the
don't need to
house.
focus on this. Your life did not if my husband said my life did not begin until I married him and birthed his children, like I would lose my damn mind. Like what
I
is wrong with you?
I just saw a TikTok also of this girl who goes, I just want to say, I love my husband. I love my kids. My life ended when I had them. She's like, I had a pretty good life beforehand.
Like it's just so invalidating to like be like you
Yeah.
are nothing unless you are a wife and mother. Like who what? Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Just
just
terrible.
it's crazy. And like again, if that is how you want your like household to be, whatever, but like don't go sit in front of a lot of women who just spent 4 years and tell them
Yeah.
their degree doesn't matter, like I don't know. There's
I
a
mean,
way to like go ahead.
it would be the equivalent of like telling a stay-at-home mom like, "Oh, you're nothing unless you get a college degree." Like no one
Yeah.
would say that either. Like you shouldn't go either way. Like that's the whole point of feminism is that like we should be able to live whichever path we want to live. And if you are a stay-at-home mom, you are a homemaker, you so happy for you. That is a beautiful life for you.
Hmm.
Love it. If you want a career and have no children and want to climb the corporate ladder, so happy for you. Beautiful life. I love it. Like it we should support women in whatever path they want to go down.
Yeah,
Period.
exactly. Like, and like some women in life, they're like, I knew from the day I was born, I was to be a mother. Like my job, like
Hmm.
I didn't feel complete. I didn't feel like my family puzzle was complete until I had children, all of that. And like that's totally valid, but like that's also not everyone's path.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know. It
Exactly.
just feels inappropriate to be talking about like bashing the president, bashing Pride Month, bashing
Hmm.
women, abortion, like all this. I'm like saying like the president's responsible for murders of innocent babies because of abortion. Like this is just inappropriate things to be talking about in public.
Yeah. Especially like in like a
In this
commencement
economy.
speech. Like
But
yeah.
just yeah, like that's not you should just be saying like good job, guys.
You did it. Go
You
on in the
did
world and
it.
do good
Yay.
things. Yay. Woo. Yeah, like you shouldn't be alienating anyone, which you know you're going to, whether it's a Catholic
Hmm.
university or not. Like you know that bringing up certain topics in a speech like that is going to alienate someone, and
Yeah.
there should just be no reason for that at your graduation ceremony.
Yeah. That's just kind of the big news right now that's
Yeah.
happening, but it was a crime enough for me.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And that being said, I think we are ready to dive into today's episode.
You said
Like
that just
settle.
like when you go, and now it's time to dive into, or like the perk of the week. Like,
Oh.
I don't know, the way you said it was like in my brain, I
More
was like,
awkward transitions. I'm just skipping the episode today. We're just bantering, perk of the weeking. We're done.
ooh, I blacked out.
You're like, did I say my parts? I don't know. Okay. So our sources today were an episode of Dateline called The Perfect Life, as well as an NBC article and an Oxygen.com article. On December 11th, 2012, Jennifer Ramsaran left her home to go shopping. When the stay-at-home mom of 3 children never returned that evening, her family started searching for her. Her disappearance would lead to a web of secrets being revealed. Jennifer and Remy Ramsaran had been married for 13 years and had 3 children together. They were college sweethearts and bought a house by Shenango Lake in New Berlin, New York. It was a very small town of about 1,000 people. Remy was a project manager for IBM, and Jen was a stay-at-home mom to their 3 children. Jen led a very busy life. She was a Sunday school teacher, knitting instructor, and a great cook. Remy's hobby was running marathons, and he once ran 26 marathons in 1 year. And his family would often go with him on his trips for his races. Jen met her best friend Eileen Sales when their daughters were in Girl Scouts together and their families grew close. Eileen said Jen was very quiet and sweet, and Remy was loud and boisterous, and they were definitely like an opposites attract type couple.
hmm
On the morning of December 11th, Remy took their children to school and then returned home around 8 a.m. because he worked from home most days. Jen was in the kitchen eating yogurt and cereal, and Remy took his computer into the living room to send some emails. Jen said she wanted to go shopping at the Carousel Mall in Syracuse. So it was about 60 miles away, but that mall had all of the good stores, and she wanted to get a new dress for their daughter. Because remember, they lived in like a very small town, so not really unusual to drive that far
hmm
to go somewhere with a good store. So she left the house between 10 and 11 a.m. in her red Chrysler minivan. Their son Glenn was 10 years old at the time, and he remembers seeing his mom before school that morning and then going to make his breakfast and lunch for the day. But that evening, Jen never returned home. She didn't really like to drive at night, so Remy grew concerned when it started to get dark and Jen was still out. He tried calling and texting her, but she didn't respond. He reached out to Jen's parents as well as her best friend Eileen, and neither of them had heard from Jen that day. Remy was worried that Jen had been in a car accident, so he called 911 and told them his wife went shopping and hadn't returned, and that just wasn't like her. Detective Richard Cobb started checking accident reports and hospitals along the way, and Remy stayed up all night waiting for Jen to come home or to receive some kind of news from the police. The next morning, Jen's children woke up and discovered that their mother still wasn't home. So Remy took the kids to school and then called his best friend Jason Wicks. And Jason asked if Remy had tried the Find My iPhone app. So he hadn't yet, so he went to the police station after dropping the children off and opened the app. So it did connect to her phone and show that her phone was moving about 20 miles outside of town in an area called Plymouth. So officers went to the area where the phone should have been, but they didn't see anything. So Remy decided to go there himself, and he was like playing the sound on his phone, like walking around, waiting for it to go off. And he did
hmm
eventually hear the phone making that sound and located it on the side of Boone Hill Road in South Plymouth. So he immediately called 911 and told them he had found his missing wife's phone. He didn't touch it, and he waited for the police to arrive. Jen was treated as a missing persons case, and police checked hospitals and roadside accident reports, but there was no like large-scale physical search for her. Her father did go around himself searching for her. And 5 days after she went missing, Jen's father found her minivan abandoned at an apartment complex about 8 miles from her house. He called the police and they searched the van. It was empty, but they did find spots of blood inside. So investigators start looking more into Jen and the Ramsarans to try to piece together like where she could be, what could have happened to her. And they learned from Remy and Eileen that Jen had recently started playing an online game called Kingdoms of Camelot. So she played with a lot of online friends, and they were worried that Jen had like met someone she knew from the game and that that person had done something to her. They said it had gotten so bad that Jen was playing the game for like 8 hours a day, just like constantly playing. Her children said she'd become more withdrawn and she would like play her game alone in her room instead of like watching TV in the living room with the family, just very much into playing this game and not really doing much else. And again, she was a very like active person who had a lot of hobbies and lots of other things that she had been doing. Eileen said that Jen hadn't been keeping up with cooking and laundry since becoming obsessed with this game. Eileen also told police that Jen had gotten close to an online British man named Rob that she played the game with. So they kind of started flirting, and Eileen thought it was getting more serious than just a friendship. She remembered one time they went to the mall, and Jen wanted to go in a store and like smell the cologne that he told her he used, so she could like see like what he smelled like. So police reached out to Rob, and he admitted that he was married, but said he and Jen had an intimate relationship, although they had never met in person. He said she had mailed him lingerie before, and he had also sent her $150 to buy herself a gift, but she'd never picked it up. They had talked about meeting in person soon, although they hadn't yet met. Detectives asked U.S. Immigration to run a check on Rob's passport, but Rob had not been to the United States in 2012. Rob said that he had been worried about Jen because she hadn't been online in days. So, in light of Jen's disappearance, Eileen told Remy about Jen and Rob's romance, and Remy was furious. However, Remy's best friend Jason was confused about why Remy was so upset because he knew that Remy himself was having an affair with Jen's best friend, Eileen.
Oh,
Yep. Yep. I said there'd be a
oh.
lot of secrets coming out here.
And it's always the men cheating who are always
Mm-hmm.
like scared their girlfriend's cheating or getting mad. I'm like,
Yep. Like,
you're
how
double
dare
dipping
you?
too. What are you doing?
Exactly.
With her best friend? It's like the lowest of lows.
With her best friend. Like, and how do you do that to your best friend, Eileen? Like,
Yeah. Like how do you look your best friend in the eye
yep.
after having an affair with her husband?
Like, while having an affair with her husband, like, they were still very much like friends. It wasn't even like it was like they used to be friends. It was a falling
How does
out. It
she
was,
not have tummy issues? I
she
my
probably
stomach would hurt.
does.
My stomach would hurt so bad if I was lying like that.
And this next part was just so bizarre that I had to include it. But Remy and Eileen got close because they were like running a lot together. So they kind of started running marathons together, doing that whole thing. And the year before Jen disappeared, Remy had challenged himself to run an entire marathon in Arizona without a sip of water. Which,
Okay.
why? Why would that be a challenge?
What
That's
award are you gonna get for that?
exactly like that's literally just stupidity. There's no
Yeah.
what? That's not what? Your body needs water to survive. Like there's no
Yeah. Especially running, like that's how people like die.
exactly, exactly. But during this race where he's probably fucking hallucinating,
Hmm.
he heard a song that made him think of Eileen, and that's when he realized he was in love with her. My guy, you're
Oh,
you're you're dehydrated. You're not in love with
yeah.
your wife's best friend. You're just dehydrated. You just need
This
some
goes
water.
back again to that TikTok of not everyone hates you. Go drink some water. Not everyone hates you. Go eat some food, take a nap. You're not in love with your wife's best friend. Just drink some water.
Yes, exactly. So a few weeks later, Remy told Eileen about his feelings and asked if he could kiss her. So she said yes, and then a few weeks after that, they started a sexual relationship. So Remy said that he and Jen had grown apart and he'd asked her about getting a divorce. Eileen said she was falling in love with Remy. She was attracted to his big personality. He would buy her clothes, but she like wasn't allowed to wear them in front of her husband. So like she could only wear them when it was like just them together.
Hmm.
So Eileen eventually separated from her husband and moved out of their house. But a few weeks before Jen went missing, Eileen broke it off with Remy and moved back home. However, she and Remy did have sex the day before Jen went missing. Eileen claims that she wanted that to be like the last time and wanted to separate for good. And after Jen went missing, Eileen knew that she had to tell police about the affair because she's like, this is going to come up. I do have to come
Hmm.
forward with this.
I need to get ahead of this.
Yeah. So Remy had told investigators his marriage was fine, but now Eileen reveals that he had been cheating on his wife, who is now missing. So Remy told investigators he arrived home around 8:05 to 8:15 a.m. the day Jen disappeared and started working on some work projects. He said Jen left to go shopping around 10:30 and then he went for a run and ended up at the local YMCA. So Remy now tells police that he suspects Jen had run off with someone she met from her online games. So now that his secrets have been exposed, he's like turning it around on her.
Hmm.
So Eileen became a suspect because of her involvement with both Remy and Jen. She was given a polygraph test, but it was inconclusive. And again, this is her best friend who is missing, and you were also having an affair with this best friend's husband. So you probably feeling lots of emotions that would get your heart rate going. So
Yeah,
not surprised that
yeah.
your polygraph came back a little wonky.
And it's also like it might show it as failed about guilt because she probably feels guilty that she was sleeping with
Exactly.
her best friend's husband. So it's like maybe it's showing that, but not for the reason you think.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why polygraphs are not admissible in a court of law for these reasons. But so police started investigating as a potential homicide, although technically Jen was still classified as a missing person. Um, they hadn't yet found her body, but they were suspecting foul play because her phone and her van had been found and like separately, so things are looking kind of odd. On February 26, 2013, at 11 p.m., Remy got a phone call that the police were downstairs at his house. Jen's body had been found on an embankment about 20 miles from her house. So there was a lot of snow on the embankment and it had started melting and exposed her body. So they did believe that she had been there for a while. So again, we're looking at December to February in upstate New York. So she was naked and was 3 miles away from where her phone was found. And by this time, everyone in town knew about Eileen and Remy's affair and thought they were both involved in Jen's death. So Eileen just kept going to Remy's house to check on him and the kids, just like we didn't learn our lesson. We're still.
Ay,
Anyway,
caramba.
I guess people just don't know how to grieve, and that's one way to.
Yeah.
Okay. But he wanted her to move in, but she didn't. And Remy then started speaking badly about his wife online, saying like she had been disconnected from the family for the past 6 months, just not really acting like a grieving husband probably would after his wife's body is found.
I also feel
No.
like if in the court of public opinion people think you're involved, bashing your dead wife is not a way to get people
No,
off of that train.
don't think that is a good
No,
tactic for that.
not
Is
at
that the
all.
right word? Strategy? Tactic?
Plan of
I
action?
think. I don't know. I'm tired.
One of
Anyway.
those. So detectives were able to discover that Jin's phone last connected to the home Wi-Fi at 10:57 a.m., which was after Remy said she had left to go shopping, although he did say it around 10:30, so it's not very off, like, oh, she went around 10:30, it was actually 20 minutes later. It's like, it's pretty close still.
Yeah, like I don't think my husband could tell you any time that
Mm-mm.
I've left or returned from the house. Like he could be like
No.
3 hours off and just
I
has no
mean,
idea.
my husband couldn't tell you the time of our flight half the time. He just forgets.
Yep.
They also started collecting surveillance footage from cameras on the route that Remy said he was running, and they weren't able to locate him on at all on the route he said he took, but surveillance footage of the YMCA showed him stretching outside the building at 12:42 p.m. So Eileen went to work the morning Jim disappeared, but picked Remy up from the YMCA around 1 p.m. and took him home. And Eileen said she thought it was odd that he was home alone in the middle of the day and didn't invite her inside like he normally would. I feel like they were just breaking this off, so I don't know why she was wanting to get invited inside, but maybe he was still holding on hope and would still be like, you know,
Yeah, like I think she knew that he wasn't done, so she's like, "Oh, like he's
yeah,
going to invite me in," but then he didn't.
yeah. So the forensics team found a bloodstain on the sweatshirt Remy was wearing the day Jen disappeared, and 3 months after her body was found, more forensic results came in which showed Jen's death was not from a natural cause, suicide, or accident, and her toxicology results were clean and there were no physical marks on her body. So on May 17th, 2013, 6 months after Jen disappeared, Remy Ramsaran was arrested for his wife's murder. He denied having anything to do with it. Jen's parents were sent to pick up their children from school and they went to live with them. Eileen saw the arrest on the news and couldn't believe it, and investigators were not able to find any evidence tying Eileen to Jen's murder. Remy called Eileen 2,000 times from jail, and she eventually cut off all contact before he went to trial because he's just blown. How do you even get to the phone that many times in jail?
Right? 2,000 times.
That's so many times.
Yeah.
So Remy's trial started in September of 2014, and Jason testified for the prosecution, said that Remy had planned to leave Jen and get custody of the kids. Eileen testified that Remy called her the day Jen disappeared and asked for a ride home from the gym. And a forensic expert testified there was no work done on Remy's computer in the morning when he said he was working. And the prosecution presented the theory that Remy killed his wife shortly after returning home at 8 a.m., left with her body in the van around 11:15 a.m., dumped her body, cell phone, and van, and then ran to the YMCA. And remember, Remy was the one who located Jen's phone after police had searched the area. So the phone was also in perfect condition, like had been placed on the side of the road and not thrown there. So it's like, oh, he's the one that finds it in the
Hmm.
like he just finds it like
Like after police had already gone there, and he like opened the Find My iPhone app like from the police department. So if so, like the police knew that that's how he knew like a general location. So if they were going to that area to search, why would they not
why
have his phone to do
Yeah, or
it
like
just
why
like
would
he
they not
did?
like take him with,
Yeah,
like I thought that was weird too. They didn't just be like, "Come on, let's get in the car, let's take that."
exactly. Yeah, I don't understand that.
So Rob testified that Jen disappeared that morning in the middle of their Kingdoms of Camelot game, which was not like her. He texted her 15 minutes later asking where she went, and she never responded. And a spot of blood was found on Remy and Jen's mattress, as well as Remy's sweatshirt. And the prosecution believed that he killed Jen in their bedroom in the middle of her game. And DNA on the bloody sweatshirt was partially his and partially Jen's. Remy testified that he didn't kill his wife, that he had the perfect life. He said he had a wife, girlfriend, kids, anything anyone could want. I got my wife, got my girlfriend, got my kids, got my house.
Like our topic of conversation before this episode was, a perfect segue, but like this is at his wife's murder trial, and he's like, "Why would I kill her? I had the perfect life. I had a wife and a girlfriend and kids, and I had everything I wanted. Why would
What
I
more
kill
could
her?"
I
I'm like,
ask for?
"We were saying this at your wife's murder trial that you
Yeah,
were on trial for."
insane. He also testified that his wife changed in the months before she disappeared. They had discussed divorce, but he said he didn't kill her. Remy was very boisterous on the stand and would sometimes answer questions about dates and times with, "I love my wife," instead of answering the question. And Remy was the defense's only witness, and his attorney argued that the surveillance footage couldn't show all angles and that Remy could have been running that route, just not visible on the cameras, which, I mean, could make sense, but I'm like, all of them?
Yeah, it's like I
I
definitely see
get
that one
it.
both ways because I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely possible that you happen to like avoid every single camera, but like you said, but every single camera. But I also don't know how many
Yeah.
cameras there were. We talking about one,
It's
10?
true.
That makes a difference.
Very true. So the trial lasted 3 weeks, and the jury only deliberated for 3 hours before finding Remy guilty of murdering his wife, and he was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Their children were told of the guilty verdict by their therapist, and Jen's parents continued to raise them. Their middle child, Glenn, went on to college and studied to become an engineer, and the other two children did not speak with Dateline. So Remy said he had a poor defense attorney who didn't even try to win his case. His dad had hired new defense attorneys to work on an appeal, and they learned that Remy's previous defense attorney, Gilberto Garcia, had never tried a murder case before and had only tried one criminal case, like ever. So,
Yeah, like what?
and with that one trial, he withdrew from that case before its conclusion, saying he wasn't competent enough to defend his client.
So
So,
he basically started one criminal trial, and that was it.
and he was like, "I'm not great at this. But this is a murder trial. That's my second shot.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this one. This one sounds
I'm not
good.
going to take a simple possession casual exchange. I'm not going to
No,
take drug paraphernalia. I'm not going to take a robbery. I'm going to take a murder charge."
going right for murder. Yep.
Yep. So Remy paid over $100,000 for Garcia to spend on expert witnesses, and no expert witnesses testified during his trial. He never recorded a single conversation with a witness and didn't put anyone on the stand except for Remy, which I feel like I know better than that, and I'm not even a lawyer of any capacity.
Like you have to make some kind of defense. Like you can't just
Yeah.
put the one person on the stand to be
I
like,
mean,
I
I
didn't
feel
do
like
it.
if you
Well,
look
all
up
right,
like
done.
criminal case 101, it's gonna be like put people on the stand,
Probably. You would
you
think
know?
so.
You'd think. He also didn't prepare Remy to testify by telling him like that he was a spontaneous man and it wouldn't look good if he gave like clearly scripted answers. So he's just like not preparing him like at all for how to
Which,
respond.
like, you can prepare someone for how to testify without, like, here's exactly how to answer, blah, blah. Like, let them know what to
Hmm.
expect. Give them things generally to say, things not to say. Like, you can't just put someone up there with, like, no preparation and be like, oh, well,
Yeah.
you're just such a spontaneous guy. Like, they'll know if it's scripted.
And I feel like a lot of
What?
times, if you're on trial and you want to testify, they have like mock testimonies of like they'll sit there with you and ask you questions like a prosecution will to be like, this is
Exactly.
what they're gonna do, and you can't get upset about it. And if that's your first time experiencing it, like if someone's in his face being like, you murdered your wife because you're blah 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 blah, and he's gonna be like, man, like freak out and be like, no, I didn't, like,
Hmm.
which looks bad. Like,
Exactly. Like, watch any episode of Law and Order and you'll see exactly how it goes. It's totally
yep.
legit, exactly what happens. But no, really, like,
I
but they do
didn't
show it.
I didn't mean to shoot him. I thought it was you walking through the door. A little Legally Blonde reference, you know? Like,
I love it.
yeah. So, Remy's new attorneys filed a 440 motion due to incompetence in 2019, and the judge ruled that Gilberto Garcia was incompetent and he was censured by the New Jersey Office of Attorney Ethics for misrepresenting his legal experience to Remy because he was only a civil lawyer. So Remy was granted a new trial because of his previous attorney's incompetence, which I do think is the right choice because it does sound like he did not have a good defense.
Yeah, definitely not. Like, this guy didn't know what the fuck he was doing.
So Remy's new attorneys got caught up to speed on the evidence in the case and also tried to gather more evidence. There was a new prosecutor on the case who was also doing the same. So the prosecutor still thought Remy was guilty, but agreed that a new trial was warranted based on the actions of his previous attorney. So the new prosecutor found voicemails that Jen left for Rob the morning she disappeared. She left 3 long voicemails where she talked about her kids and what she was doing that morning. She never once said anything about going shopping later that day, and the new judge would not allow for Rob to testify remotely, and Rob wouldn't fly to the United States for Remy's new trial. So, kind of losing him as a witness. So, the lead investigator for Jen's murder case also passed away from a heart attack after Remy's first trial. So, the prosecution was facing some new challenges. Remy's new defense attorneys discovered that the evidence about the blood on Remy's sweatshirt had been misrepresented because the DNA showed a mixture of Remy and Jen's DNA, but they couldn't prove like who the blood actually belonged to. And as we've said many times in stuff like this, they live together. It could be from a cut or a nosebleed. And obviously, her DNA is going to be on her husband's sweatshirt. They might even be hanging in the same closet. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be there.
Because that's the thing, like in the first trial, they presented it as, oh, it was a mix of Remy's blood and Jen's blood. But the new attorneys are like, that's not the case. Like, it's a mix of their DNA, and there is
Yeah.
some blood on there, but we don't know if it's his
Yeah.
blood or her blood. We just know it's blood, and we know that both of their
Mm-hmm.
DNA is on there. But again, she could, have touched the sweatshirt, especially a sweatshirt that you usually don't wash every single time you wear. So, like, she's probably touched it, had her face on it, whatever,
And,
and could have an unrelated
also,
blood stain.
like, if you're saying, like, she left for the grocery store, she could have hugged you before you left for the grocery
Yeah,
store. Like, that happens.
exactly.
Like, so obviously, this evidence would not be used in the new trial. A previous witness who was also discovered, who reported seeing someone driving Jen's van around 5:30 p.m. They were pulled over and looked suspicious, but the witness couldn't tell like who was in the car. It couldn't have been Remy because he was at home calling 911 at this time, and the witness was interviewed by Remy's first attorney, but was not used during his trial. Another DNA expert reviewed the forensics report and said male DNA was found underneath Jen's fingernails, and it wasn't enough to conclusively identify someone, but it was enough to determine it was not Remy's DNA, which is also significant.
Very much so.
So while Remy was in jail awaiting his retrial, he told Dateline that he wasn't having an affair, that he, Jen, and Eileen had threesomes, and that's why there was no motive to kill his wife. And Eileen's like, no, that's not true. She probably wishes that was true. That sounds better than I was fucking my
Right.
best friend's husband. But
She's like,
she's
yeah,
like,
let's go with
no,
that story, actually.
that's not true. He also never shared this information with the police during the previous investigations. It was like, if you're trying to say I don't have a motive, like, why wouldn't you say that earlier? Why are you just saying it now? Um,
Exactly. Like years and years later.
yeah. And Remy told Dateline that prison was easy. He was a corporate guy, and there's so much more freedom in prison.
Like the things that he said in this interview were just wild. And I'm just like, my guy, like you're already a very hated person and you're sitting there just like
Yeah, you're not
spouting off
helping
all this
yourself.
stuff. He's like, prison is so easy. It's so easy. You have no idea. It's great. I'm like, I was a corporate guy. Like, I have so much more freedom here. Like,
Mhm.
it's great. You don't even realize how much freedom you have in prison. It's like, what are you talking about?
So dumb. So the defense approached the prosecution and asked for a plea deal. The prosecution spoke with Jen's parents, and all they wanted was for Remy to admit that he'd killed Jen. They're like, we don't even care about like just admit that you did it. So in October of 2023, Remy Ramsaran pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of Jen Ramsaran. He was sentenced to 22 years with time served, so he'll likely be out in half that time. And Remy told Dateline that he did not kill his wife, and he would rather spend 8 more years in prison for a crime he didn't commit than to trust a jury to acquit him and set him free, because there is a chance you could get a heftier sentence if you go to trial.
Yeah.
Remy maintains his innocent, and their son Glenn also believes his dad is innocent. Um, but that is the murder of Jen Ramsaran.
What are your thoughts on this one, Courtney? This is a wild one.
It's a wild one, and it's really hard because, like, it doesn't seem like there is a ton of evidence for Remy.
No.
Um, besides, like, most of the time, like, the husband did it, and it's like,
Hmm.
but it's just so weird that there's like no other possibility at all.
Yeah.
And
And the
like,
other male DNA under the fingernails
yeah,
is huge. Like,
that's
who,
crazy.
what? Yeah. So I feel like that's not it's a very specific place for there to be DNA. You know what I mean? It's not
Hmm.
like, oh, you just like rubbed up against someone or you usually kind of have to scratch someone to like really get actual
Yeah.
DNA underneath your fingernails. And yeah, I mean, there isn't really like Remy is a piece of shit, obviously, but like there isn't really any evidence. There
And he
was
like didn't
some,
help himself, but like also,
yeah,
I don't know. Like, why was he at the YMCA and needing a ride home? Why did you run
yeah,
so far that you can't run back?
yeah. Unless that
And
was just an excuse to see Eileen and get her to
yeah.
pick him up. That's the thing, like the only evidence, quote unquote, is that he doesn't really have an alibi because they
Hmm.
said that there wasn't any work being done on his computer. He wasn't seen like running the way that he said he ran.
Hmm.
Um, that's it. I mean that and then like there's some blood on his sweatshirt, which we don't know if it's his or Jen's.
Yeah. And it also just seems like he really like just shot himself in the foot where he just like kept
Mm-hmm.
saying stuff. So then you look suspicious because you keep saying shit. Like you find her phone that looks like
Mm-hmm.
newly placed. Like you're just
It
not doing
definitely
things to help yourself.
It definitely gives Scott Peterson vibes to me. Like it's
Hmm.
very similar where it's like you were a very disliked person. You clearly were not a good husband, but did you murder your wife? There's
Like you
not really
either
any
murdered her
evidence.
or you're the most unlucky person in the entire world.
Yeah,
Like
which
it's
is
a weird
possible.
one.
I mean,
I mean,
but in
yeah.
this one, but there is some kind of DNA evidence that someone that's not Remy. Like that is hard to
Hmm.
overlook.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's like you don't even really get that closure because like he pleaded guilty, but he's still saying like, "Oh, I didn't actually do it, but
Hmm.
I pleaded guilty so I can get out of here hopefully
And I
sooner."
wonder like what there is that makes his son believe he's innocent. Like, does he think
Hmm.
there's like hard evidence his dad didn't do it? Or is it like, that's my dad, I don't want to believe it? Especially because he's the only one who would talk. It makes me kind of think maybe the other two kids don't believe that. So I'm like, I wonder
Yeah.
why Glenn believes that,
Hmm.
like,
I wondered that too, because yeah, the other two children were not interviewed by Dateline. They didn't even use their names, like nothing. I don't even know their ages at the time, nothing like that. And he was also only 10 at the time. So,
mm-hmm,
and then, I mean, his father was arrested shortly after. So, like, that's a big chunk of time in very formative years that you didn't really get to know your dad. So,
yeah.
not to discount, his feelings. I just don't know.
What
Yeah.
exactly? Yeah.
It's a tough one though.
It is.
So definitely let us know your thoughts on this. I don't know. I did some like Reddit, deep dives, and it's very mixed feelings as well from a lot of people who kind of similar type things of like, I'm pretty sure this guy did it, but also, is there any kind of proof? But also, what is this male
It's like
DNA?
I can't really make an argument that he did it, but I can't really make an
Hmm.
argument that he didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's
And
like
like
right in the
if
middle where you're like,
Yeah. And if it wasn't
maybe.
him, like who? Like obviously like random things do happen, but not very often. And for there to be like no other evidence like
Hmm.
to this other person, but also, I mean, could it have been a case of police immediately focused on him and didn't look for other evidence that could support another suspect, you know? Because
Yeah,
that definitely could be the case too.
crazy.
All right. That being said, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that this weekend, I got to go to Florida, Tampa specifically, to celebrate my friends Alex and Alyssa who are getting married. I think I just talked about them like last week with their wedding shower was my perk of the week, but we got to go to Tampa and have like a fun night out. We went to this restaurant on Friday that had like flamenco dancers, and that was super fun to kind of like eat
Hmm.
and have like a little show, kind of like go to some bars after, and then have like a beach day and like another day kind of in St. Pete. Like it was just really nice to kind of, be around different places
Hmm.
and enjoy all of it. I went to a
You guys had a lot of
bakery.
like fun, different activities too. It
Yeah.
wasn't like the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't like, yeah, like the same thing every time. It was like very different each day. I'm still thinking about the bakery that we went to on the last day because it was very good.
Yum.
um,
I love a good
gonna fly
bakery.
back down just for this bakery, but it was a very fun time, and it's just so fun like celebrating them, and selfishly getting a little trip, somewhere is always fun too when you go somewhere
Yeah.
exciting. So it was just a fun weekend overall, and it's just I was really excited to celebrate them and to just have like a really
Hmm.
good weekend with some of our friends.
Yeah, it sounded like it was a really good time.
It was fun. And that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week, can't even talk at this point. It's not even 10 p.m. We're doing good.
I know we're doing great on
But
time.
but my perk of the week, I didn't get to go anywhere as exciting as Tampa, but Courtney and I did get to see author Eric
Mm,
Larson this week.
mm-hmm.
Um, so if you guys are on Patreon, we did a book review of Devil in the White City. I don't even know how many months ago at this point.
Sometime last fall, I think.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds about right. Um, but it was a very good book, and we both really enjoyed it. And then he went on a book tour for his new book, which is called The Demon of Unrest. So we went to see him speak and talk about his new book, and he was a very good, like, stage presence,
Mm-hmm.
as Courtney said. Like, because you never know with
Yeah.
authors, you're like, oh, you're a great writer, but like, are you boring to listen to? But
Yeah.
he was not. Like, he was a good speaker, and he was funny and entertaining. I'm definitely very excited to read his book. And then we also just got to have, a little date night and have some
Yeah.
delicious dinner and then book it to the venue because
We had
the
to run
guy,
a little
the server took a
bit.
long time,
Yeah.
but we made it just in time. Yeah, it was just a very, very nice, nice fun night.
Yes. It was a lot of fun. I am very excited to read the book. I was like reading the little synopsis
Yeah.
to Kevin because we're going to the beach with my family. And so Kevin's like, I'll take, like, that's when he reads his one book a year. He's like taking
Mm-hmm.
this on from my dad, where he like, takes his book. And I was like,
Yep.
this might be like, because he likes nonfiction. He doesn't want to read
Yeah.
fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, Eric Larson is someone you might like because
Yeah.
it's nonfiction, it's true, but it kind of reads more like a thriller and like
Mm-hmm.
so I was like reading him the description. He's like, that does sound interesting. And I was like, I don't know if I want you to take this to the beach though, because it's a signed copy.
You're like, I don't really trust you that much.
I know I just like sold you on this book, but any book that goes to the beach never comes back the same.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I told Andrew the same thing that I thought he might like it as well. So we'll
yeah,
have a book club, the four of us, on Patreon. So if
yes.
you guys want to hear
That'll be
that.
like probably August. Give Kevin his
I know, I
his
was like, how
week to
long do
maybe
we
read it.
need to give them to read a whole book? The next
Kevin
year.
will not read a book unless he's on the beach and has nothing else to do.
Andrew
That's
will
him.
occasionally, like when he does read a book, I mean, he like flies through it, but it's like two a year, if that. Like,
Yeah, Kevin is just like, he's like, I mean, it sounds cool, but there's so much other stuff I can do.
yeah,
So he's also, I feel like he's a little like ADHD too. Like he's not
yeah,
very, he's not someone who can like sit and like do
and like
something.
focus on a book. Yeah.
Yeah.
For Andrew, it's weird because like he was a very avid reader, like as a kid and like a teenager, and then like I don't know, as an
Hmm.
adult, just kind of fell off
He
of
found
it.
them
And
video games and it
I
just turned
know,
his brain to mush.
those devil video games. Also, if I can just add really quick, kind of a second double perk of the week was the double
Ooh.
rainbow I got to see tonight. That was just
Mm.
beautiful. It was so bright. Like it was just like
Hmm.
right there and it was like right outside my house where there was like nothing blocking it, because it's hard when you like see it sometimes. You're like, oh, but like there's all this stuff in there. But it was just like beautiful and bright. My toddler had just fallen asleep and we woke her up to show it
She
to
was
her.
not amused. She was like,
Not
Mom,
very
I don't
much.
care.
She was like, she smiled and she was like, wow. And then Andrew's like, do you want to go back to bed? And she's like, yes. But like she's
It's
never
like
seen a
me
rainbow
whenever
before.
like Kevin's like telling me something and I'm like,
I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, that's
okay.
great. Okay, I'm gonna go
Wrap it
now.
up. Let's wrap it
All
up.
right. So yeah, but anyway, that was just my perk of the evening because that was like right before we started recording, but that
Hmm.
was delightful. Anyway, if you guys want to tell us about your trips, if you guys are going to read this book, do you guys want us to do
Hmm.
another Patreon book
Book
club
club.
for this book? Do you want us to make our husbands read it so they can join us, or do you not give a shit? Let us know your thoughts on this case. All of those things. You know where to find us on all the places in the show notes. Speaking of Patreon, we are at patreon.com/caffeinated crimes if you do want to hear the aforementioned Devil in the White City episode. And we also will have an episode coming out in like 2-ish weeks. Courtney's looking at her
I was
calendar, so I know
just
she has a better date.
looking. Yes, it'll be 2-ish weeks.
Okay.
Because we will be going to CrimeCon on Thursday at the time of this recording.
Okay. Oh, so exciting. So again, last minute plug. If you were going to be at CrimeCon,
That's
let
wrong.
us
That's
know.
wrong.
Oh,
That's wrong.
nope, just kidding.
It'll be a week and a half.
Okay. Still,
Oops.
last minute plug. If you were going to be at CrimeCon, let us know. We would love to meet you.
I'm about to be in Nashville on the wrong day, guys.
That's fine. We'll make it work.
We'll make it
We do
work.
have to remember next week, though, as long as we can record. Wait, okay, we're recording at least one episode next week, so at least we'll have something out. We gotta remember to plug CrimeCon at the beginning of the episode because half of y'all are probably gone by this point. So we
That's
need
true.
to
Hmm. Hmm.
plug it at the beginning and make sure that you guys know to find us if
You know
you are
what?
going to be there.
Real time
Putting it in the
plug
notes. Here we go.
CrimeCon at beginning.
Great job, because you knew I would forget.
Yeah, I knew I would forget to.
Yeah. And we have been
But
talking too much. What else is there to say, Courtney?
all that's left to say is please give us 5 stars on Apple, on Spotify, anywhere you can have a rating system. If you want to like on YouTube, subscribe, give us some love over there. We always appreciate it. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.